Welcome back to another episode of Taking Inventory. This week we've got Jeffrey Mayer, the head of product and managing director at DanAds. He's here to talk to us about what DanAds is, how it's helping publishers move to a self-service ads environment, and talk about the proliferation of self-service. Jeffrey, really excited to have you on the pod today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to speak with you guys about it.
Let's dive right in just to learn a little bit more about your background, your career journey before we get into DanAds.
Yeah, so I guess this phase of my career started in 2010 when I was in ad operations at whitepages.com. That eventually led me to becoming their head of programmatic. And then after moving along from them, I went to Shazam and SoundCloud, where I was also head of programmatic at each company. I've run the gamut from direct sale, direct media, running that, strategic partnerships, brand partnerships, and I also have some experience working at SSP, where I manage demand partner strategy and DSP integrations. So I kind of run the gamut in terms of my background in ad tech and publishing.
And in terms of, I guess, maybe just a level set for our listeners, can you kind of just quickly kind of go over like what does DanAds do? Like again, I think to a lot of people in the industry, it's sort of I think thought of as like if you want a self-service tool, DanAds can basically build one for you. Is that a fair description? It'd be great to kind of know more about how you guys operate.
Yeah, that was the original product. So, DanAds at its core is a custom white label self-serve advertising platform. But what we really focus in on is the automation of delivering media. And that's through direct channel, not programmatic. So when we think about programmatic being an R2B mechanism of being in the bid stream, but what we're doing is we're automating the delivery of media through the ad server, connecting all the pipes that publishers' ad tech stack has. So from the CRM to the OMS to the CMS system, we connect everything and the ad server so that buyers can buy media through our platform. And also publisher ad ops teams can utilize the platform for efficiencies in their own workflow. And sellers can use the platform for prospecting and helping to manage their portfolio of clients or their media buys.
And are you guys the ad server, or are you using an ad server in a lot of those cases?
Yeah, so we're not the ad server. We're not making. We're not the decisioning engine. So we are connecting into the publisher's ad server or multiple ad servers. We can deliver media, across any ad format or media channel. So it's not even ad serving that we connect into, but we support video, display, audio, print media, and non-connected products that are part of a media buy.
Interesting. And along those lines, are you guys also, once you set up the self-service tool for your client, are you guys also an extension of the sales teams or help with kind of go-to-market motions? Or is that you're purely tech and kind of step away?
Yeah, but we are a technology company in the fact that we're building this platform on behalf of the publisher or our partner, and they own the platform essentially. It's their platform. It's custom to them. They're responsible for managing it in terms of like a go-to-market strategy. But what we do is we help provide guidance in that. Our client partnerships team works really closely with our clients to help promote the platform, what our best practices are, what we've learned in the past from other clients, what the strategies should be. And each publisher that we work with is so unique because they have different strategies. Some use our platform strictly as a small business advertising tool where small businesses can go in, book media. It's limited to a small budget. Some publishers open our platform up to agencies and holding co in terms of their ability to book media through the platform directly with the publisher, or some of our clients use it only as an internal ops tool and don't even expose it externally. So it's the efficiency that they gain in ad operations and workflow that we help create.
Interesting.
So a lot of different use cases for it.
That's awesome. And are you guys also, and a lot of these questions kind of come just honestly from our experience at Snap building the self-service business there. So trying to think about like kind of where like you guys start and stop. But are you guys also building like the bid logic? Like if you want to support like a second price auction and the goal is to drive installs or video, are you guys building that as well on behalf of the customer?
Yeah, it's not so much that. It's more like, let's say, like you have a direct sold media product, which has, you're buying on a campaign basis, delivering a guaranteed amount of inventory. So what we do is we build that order in our system, and then we push that order into the ad server. So that becomes the campaign and all the line items that are associated to it. So those deliver, on a standard guaranteed tier, whichever the publisher wants to put it on, and it delivers in full. On the programmatic side, we can support essentially programmatic buying through the interface as well, where you could enter in a bid, and then instead of directing the order into the publisher ad server, we're pushing that order into the publisher's DSP. So, essentially, a buyer can use it almost as like a self-serve DSP tool, where they're booking the media. We push it out into any one of the DSPs that we integrate into, and that could be an audience extension buy on top of what the publisher's owned and operated is.
Yeah, Jeff. I think looking at the client list on your website, which you guys are very public about, you guys have some really notable brands that I think some people may be even surprised to hear that like they're partnering with a company like DanAds. I mean, Roku, for instance, Paramount Plus, which was just announced, and Spotify. And so, how do you work with maybe some of the larger scaled companies that also have in-house teams building similar tech? And then maybe more of the traditional media like the Wall Street Journal or New York Times, that I don't think anyone would be surprised that they're not building their own self-service tool and maybe partnering. Like, how do you work with those types of companies differently?
So we really do have an amazing client base. That's one of our powerhouses, and we've been lucky in that they've seen the true value and the true opportunity of what our platform delivers. There is a difference between building a self-serve tool in-house versus working with a partner like us. I think, for one thing, if you're trying to build it in-house, that's great. You have a specific use case for it, you figured it out, but you may not consider some of the aspects of what needs to be implemented or integrated into it. There's a lot of complexity behind the UI that controls all the aspects of the media buy. And typically with an in-house built platform, it launches really great the first time, and then there's no iteration on it. There's no evolution of that platform. And it's really difficult for a lot of publishers to, invest in improving that experience because they've kind of locked in to what they built. What our platform offers is a lot more flexibility and scalability. We have more component driven pieces of our platform where the publisher can select to use a certain kind of a booking flow, or certain features that we've built that they can't build. Like, we've built a reporting into our platform. We've built a creative manager into our platform. We've built the billing aspect into our platform, and connecting the pipe between the Salesforce or other CRM system, or another OMS. Like, we've made all those connection points. So our platform out of the box comes with 95% of what the publisher would have built in-house anyway. So it's kind of a waste of their development time and resources to do it themselves when they own this platform anyway. It is white label to them. Our name isn't really on it when we deliver that end product. So when you're buying through Roku, you're not going to see DanAds logo on there. It's the Roku platform. The other benefit of what we offer is we build features at a furious pace, really large and really small features. And all those features are provided to each one of our clients on our core platform. So as I'm working on what I think is going to be a universal solution in our UI, that can then be delivered to each client without having to ask us for custom development. So we save a lot of time and resources there. There are clients that do custom development with us. That's a big part of the custom platform. But at the end of the day, we're reducing that dependency on custom development by building these feature sets ourselves and distributing them across our entire platform.
And, when you guys are out there in market kind of, pitching this, do you find like, again, we are like huge proponents of self-service, kind of first self-service only, if you can get away with it. But do you find that, publishers are looking at it like this is an opportunity to grow kind of more of the tail and torso, or this is an opportunity for us to save on OpEx because it's more efficient, or a mix of both? Like, kind of where are we in the sort of thought process right now of most publishers?
Yeah, it's certainly been an evolution because, so if I take a step back, when I was working at Shazam, we had a lot of, record labels that would send us, buys on the spot, very small budgets, but frequently promoting different artists. So I needed a self-serve platform for that specific use case. So that was specifically for our record labels to buy media through Shazam, and I onboarded DanAds. So DanAds, I was their first US client in 2017 or whenever it was. And, the flexibility of what they built for me was really unique, and the speed in which it was developed was surprisingly fast for something that was custom. So then after, I left Shazam, I went to SoundCloud, and then we had another use case for it. That was for artists to promote themselves by investing in their own careers, where they could promote a track on SoundCloud and get more exposure, more plays, more fans. So that was specifically that use case. Some of our early adopter publishers were thinking this is only a small business tool, where a small business would go in and we get the long tail of ad spend when they would have an inbound lead, and instead of doing the inbound lead and we can't focus on it because it's too small of a budget for our ad ops team to manage it, just let them buy it through the self-serve platform. But that has completely transitioned over the last couple of years, where our publishers are seeing it as more of a business management tool for their ad operations. So you could essentially put 100% of your advertising business into this platform and operate it more efficiently than you could by going into 5 different platforms to execute the same task. Sellers can use our platform instead of being competing against their jobs. It's a sales tool for them to build proposals and to automate the building of a media plan that can be sent out to an advertiser for their approval. And then they could book it right there or just buy it right there through an invoice. So it's really a tool set that helps automate and create efficiencies, and it can be as big as you want it.
And that is obviously there's a ton of benefit for the publisher then, right? That you've just described. For the buyer side, like as more and more self-service tools come out in market, and like where does this end up for buyers? Like at some point there are hundreds of these self-service tools. Like what's a buyer supposed to do with so many options out there and individualized tools?
Yeah, that is going to be like an inflection point where there become too many logins for the advertiser to effectively buy. But when you think about like a self-serve tool, so there, you have your DSP where you could buy, programmatic media across the marketplace, and it's hit or miss in terms of what you get because there's not always transparency in what you're buying. You don't know if it's quality or low quality. There seems like an endless amount of garbage out there. But if you're already booking direct with Roku, and you're already, that's part of your media buy, that's part of your media strategy, is to make a buy with Roku or TripAdvisor or Outdoor Media or Nine. That's part of your strategy. Buy directly with the publisher, and that's your access point. So it's the same thing as Facebook or Google, where they have their own self-serve because it's their closed walled garden ecosystem. We're allowing publishers just to create the same thing and to give access directly to their inventory.
And do you see a world where you like stitch it all together and there's like a DanAds audience network or something like that? Or do you think that's sort of defeats the purpose of maybe some of the stuff you guys are working on?
We'd have to do it very carefully if we went that route. It's been something, obviously we've spoken about. One is we have to maintain that it's premium, that it's not just the entire long tail of publisher inventory that can access it. There has to be more controls over it than your typical, SSP or DSP platform in terms of what that ecosystem consists of. But I think, we've spoken about maybe like an SSO integration into our platforms, but we are also not a demand partner. We don't have a demand strategy. We're not going to agencies. We're not going to advertisers and trying to sell our publishers inventory on their behalf. That's not our role. So if we did build a marketplace, that's kind of the role that we'd have to take on. And then with that creates channel conflict in terms of sales. So we'd have to be really careful in terms of threading that needle where we're not a competitor to their own in-house direct sellers, but we can maybe help boost or redirect programmatic budgets back to direct. Because when you think about it, programmatic was the promise of programmatic was automation, right? And we built RTB around that automation, and with it becomes a fragmented environment with 20 different ad tech layers that you have to manage, and the complexity and the frustration and the brand safety and the privacy issues and everything you have to layer in the value of that media in the first place. What we've been able to do is basically be the best SPO path for any buyer. It is a direct relationship between the advertiser and the publisher. There's no S chain. There's no intermediary between us. We're just the tech layer that the buyer can use to access the publisher inventory. So when you think about that, that becomes the new automation of what programmatic should have been in the first place. It is that direct connection with publisher and no additional layer on top of it. So, we help our publishers retain more revenue. The dollar that the advertiser spends is a dollar that gets pushed into the ad server. We're not taking a cut of that at that point. So, it's more beneficial with the way that automation technology is going to say, hey, I was buying programmatically, but this is also automation programmatic in the fact that it is a direct connection. It's technology driven.
Everything you just described, I mean, again, for the publisher, I mean, they're saving on OpEx as these automations are put in place. There is a more optimized supply path, right? SPO. And so they're removing middlemen, they're getting more direct sold. And so there's, I would imagine, an increase of revenue and a decrease in cost for them. So if that's the case, would love for you to confirm that. But also then, how do you guys price with these customers? Is it on the cost savings? Is it on the revenue generation? Is it on a SaaS fee? There's so many elements here that it seems like it could be.
Yeah, with the cost structure, let's tackle that one first. So we have our license fee, and then we take anywhere, and don't quote me on this because it's commercial, but anywhere between, let's say, 1% to 5% of, let's call it a commission. And that's based upon the fact that we're not reducing the value of media that gets pushed through the system. So we're not devaluating that dollar, but the publisher pays us based upon volume. And, we have different agreements in place with different partners because there's, it's a different use case. There's a different number of integrations that we're doing. So a publisher that just has a single ad server is one cost, while a publisher that has 3 ad servers and a DMP and a reporting connection that they want to make and an OMS, that's a different cost. So it varies from partner to partner. And then even when I say commission, there is a volume component in it, but it could be based upon revenue, it could be based upon impressions. We have flexible agreements because we have to be flexible in how our platform works. And then you're mentioning cost savings. So with what our platform can do, simple things like validating a creative to make sure that it fits ad specs automatically. That reduces the amount of time that someone in ad operations has to do that manually. And that efficiency gain can be equated to cost saving. depending upon how your platform's configured, this thing can reduce 80-90% of the amount of manual work that you have to do with each one of those different steps in trafficking media or managing your media or building a strategy. So the single person in ad operations, instead of reducing headcount, you exponentially increase their capacity to do work. And with that exponential increase, now they're responsible for more revenue within their company, and they can take on more strategic tasks instead of working on Excel docs that serve nobody's purpose. Like, there's a lot of dumb work out there. Let's get rid of it.
Yeah. No, it makes total sense. We philosophically, it could not be more aligned. One example you've talked about a few times, and obviously I think of it in the press, is Roku and then Paramount. But CTV is a place that I think especially given a lot of our listeners are kind of from like the walled gardens, the social networks. CTV is kind of a new beast to some extent. A lot of similarities, but a lot of differences, just because it's not inherently like a direct response channel. I think it can be, but it's just different in nature. Are there any like interesting learnings you had just like building these, because they are kind of at the like frontier of like what does self-service CTV look like for like an SMB? Yeah, just thought love to kind of get your point of view on that.
Yeah, there's a couple different things, I guess. One is for that small business that can finally have their ad shown on a TV-sized screen. That's huge for them. Particularly like when they're trying to reach their local market and being able to target their audience on a really premium property. That was never available before for them. Usually the budget minimums were too high, and now with this technology, you can reduce that budget minimum down to whatever you want. There's no floor there. So that's one way of opening up the opportunity for small businesses to reach a more impactful ad format. Then from a technical perspective, CTV has always had a problem programmatically in terms of who the content owner is, right? Programmatically, and there is no real true open marketplace for buyers to buy unless you have that direct relationship with the owner of the CTV app. So there's a lot of underserved revenue opportunity there, which our platform fills the gap. So instead of trying to buy CTV in a marketplace, buy it directly with the platform. You'll get the scale and reach that you want anyway, and the quality content that you're aligned with.
One thing we haven't talked about today, I think it's important for listeners to understand that DanAds is headquartered in Sweden. So it's an international company. You opened up the U.S. office. You were the first U.S. customer, but now have expanded kind of the U.S. presence. But a lot of advertisers and publishers want to be able to buy across border and also sell across border without necessarily opening massive sales offices and things like that. And so, can you talk a little bit about what it was like for you to open the DanAds office, first true presence in the U.S., but then how you work with publishers on their international strategies utilizing DanAds?
Yeah. So I wasn't the original New Yorker in the office. That goes to our CIO, Johan. So he was the first one to actually open the physical U.S. office. But when he moved back to Sweden, that's when I came in to be managing director, and got a new office, larger presence here in the U.S. And it's been really exciting to have our footprint here, to have a team in place here, and to be able to be on the same time zone as 85% of our clients anyway. The U.S. is obviously the biggest market for most companies. For us to have a strong presence here is important as we grow and work with our clients, and make sure that we're always available for them. Expanding globally, yes, we do. So our platform again is kind of agnostic. Let's say we support any currency, any media channel, any advertiser type. Whether you want to pay with a credit card or invoice or Google Pay or Apple Pay, it's all in the system. So when you want to open up this platform to a new country, you're fully able and capable to do that. We have clients in almost every continent right now. We have a client in Africa, we have several in Australia, New Zealand, several in Europe, several in the US, and we have a lot in Canada. So we've needed to work globally and internationally. That's kind of like the whole point of it, isn't it? Is to make sure that where I don't have footprints or boots on the ground, is I can still do business in those areas.
And then, aside from, global and CTV, we always ask, guests on this, like, where do you think sort of like the future of DanAds is, and maybe more generally, even like self-serve advertising, but like crystal ball, like what's this space look like 5 years from now?
Yeah, I think we're at the start of the growth period for self-serve advertising, which is surprising that, DanAds has been around for 10 plus years. But I think that, with our presence in market, what we've been able to prove as a really important tool set for our clients, other people have taken notice, and some have built their own, some are, working with our competitors, but it it's going to be an ongoing trend, particularly as automation improves, as AI becomes more prevalent in making media recommendations and creative generation, or generative creative, I should say. But there are all these things happening all at once that reduce time requirements, and that makes self-serve advertising larger. So I think that any publisher out there or any technology platform out there that has an audience, that has advertisers, should be thinking about building or working with a company that provides this type of automation, because it is critical for your business and your strategy, not only just for now, but thinking ahead. Okay, we've gone through repetitive cycles of increase, decrease in headcount, and you put your business at risk on those downswings when you can't accomplish the work that you need to do. Automation tools like this help protect you against that. And I think that those fluctuations are going to happen more frequently as we go forward in the future. There'll be more ups and downs happening a lot faster. So it's a good thing to be prepared for, to align your entire organization around, and not just leave it to the one ad ops lead to figure out. This has to be a decision that comes down from your CEO, your CRO, your CFO, your CMO. Make sure that you're all aligned on understanding, why do we need this tool? How should we market it? How should we expose it? What should we use it for? And at the end of the day, is it a cost-saving tool for us, or is it a revenue driver for us, or is it both?
I mean, I think we couldn't agree more. As James said, we're just such self-service kind of fans and zealots. I'm sure some listeners would describe us as that, for exactly the reasons you described, right? The potential cost savings, the ability to service new markets and get net new advertisers, and just kind of everything along that path. So yeah, I love that vision of the future that you just described. But anyone interested in learning more about, DanAds and DanAds kind of view of self-service for publishers and what it means for the market, where can they learn more about the company?
They can come by my apartment. I'll hang out with them. They could visit us on LinkedIn, DanAds LinkedIn, or they can visit DanAds.com, or they can email us directly at info@danads.com. And happy to answer more questions about it. There's a pretty strong passion point for me. Again, like you, I truly believe in this technology, and we're here to help beyond just grow our client base. We want to educate the market. We want to understand what the best practices are around building these tools or features or platforms. We want to make sure that everybody's aligned in the industry and try not to create a fragmented marketplace. That's the antithesis of what we want to do. So reach out to us.
That's great. We'll put the contact and the site in the show notes for anyone wanting to learn more. Certainly think.
Along with your apartment address.
Give us your address, your social security, your phone number, the whole thing. But Jeffrey, thank you so much for coming on today, talking through all that. Fascinating what you guys are doing at DanAds. So super excited.
Yeah, appreciate it. And Self-serve unite. Let's go. No, but it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.